की जय। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। प्रथमं सद्गुरुं वन्दे श्रीकृष्णं तदनन्तरं गुरुः पापात्मनां त्राता श्रीकृष्णस्त्वमलात्मनाम् भर्जनं भवबीजानाम् अर्जनं सुखसम्पदाम् तर्जनं यमदूतानां राम रामेति गर्जनम् नमः कमलनाभाय नमः कमलमालिने नमः कमलपादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तद्ग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Dear devotees of God, we are going to sing from Book 2, page number 131. The words will be projected on the TV screen. I request you all to move forward, especially on this side, to move forward, please. Let's lovingly sing the names of Sita and Ram, Bhagwan Shri Sita Ram. Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita सीताराम सीताराम बोलिए सियावर रामचंद्र की जय सियावर रामचंद्र की जय श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की जय जगत गुरु उत्तम श्री कृपालु जी महाराज की जय Devotional listeners, now I humbly request your full attention as I continue with the topic of the lessons to be learned from the Ramayan. This is day 3 of the series, and today we are going to discover further lessons we can learn from this scripture, which is known as Itihas or a historical scripture. Raja Dashrath. First, let's look at Bhagwan Ram's father, King Dashrath. King Dashrath was a very opulent man because he was a king after all. He had so much wealth at his disposal. He was very strong, physically very strong, very valiant. As I pointed out yesterday, his chariot could travel in 10 directions. And he could claim half of Indra's throne in Swargalok whenever he wanted. He had so much. He was living in a palace. He was living in the lap of luxury. But one day, as he saw his face in the mirror, he saw some gray hair. And he immediately spoke these words. Shravana sameep bhaye सित केसा मनहु जरठ पन अस उपदेसा नृप जुबराज राम कह देहु जीवन जन्म लाहु किन लेहु. He thought to himself, my gray hair is indication of approaching old age. Life will soon come to an end. So I must now take a step to fulfill the true purpose of my life. He immediately made plans to give the kingdom of Ayodhya to his eldest born, Ram, and for himself to retire to the forest to practice devotion full time. Think of how much he had. And he was willing to give it up just like that. He didn't think life in the forest, it's very difficult. It's a difficult life. It's a harsh life. He did not think like that. He said life is precious and life is also very temporary. I don't know when I will die. But these gray hair of mine, they are indication of approaching old age. And after old age, there's only one possibility, and that is death. Sri Maharaj Ji has said, Jo jaake na aaye wo jawani dekhi, jo aake na jaye wo budhapa dekha. When youth leaves, it does not come back. When old age comes, it does not leave. So after old age, there is death, if we are lucky to reach old age. King Dashrath realizes the supreme importance of being born human. He realizes the task that we have on hand, the noble mission of human life, which is to know God. The Vedas say, Uttishtat Jagrat Prapya Varani Bodhat Kathopanishad. O humans, wake up, awaken, arise, and seek the holy association of a guru so that you may learn about God from him. In other words, attain God. Jagat Guru Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj, my Gurudev, he used to say, first attain God realization. Now that you're in the human form of life, first attain God. Pehle Bhagavad Prapti kar lo, then you can do other things. तब दूसरा काम करते रहना। सर्वप्रथम भगवत प्राप्ति कर लो। Sri Maharaj used to say, attain God first, get that out of the way, that is the most important thing in life, and then you can do other things. Everything else is secondary. King Dashrath recognizes the value of human life. Bhagwan Ram says in the Ramayan, Sab mam priya sab mam upjaye, sab te adhik manuj mohi bhaye. God says, all creatures are my children. Insects, birds, animals. There's so many creatures, plants and trees. All of them are living beings. Bhagwan says, they're all my children. Sab mama upajai, they've all come from me. I am the father of all. But out of all of them, all my children, I love my human children the most. God has been most merciful to his human children. When we are born human, we are given two gifts. First one, amazing gifts. First one is that we have a mind which is able to think about more than just eating, sleeping, and procreating. We're able to think about God. We're able to think about our mind and how to control our mind. We're able to think abstract thoughts. The other creatures, insects, birds, animals, plants, trees, they cannot think about God. They can only think about ahar, nidra, bhaya, maithuna. That's it. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. That's all that they can think about. They cannot think about God. Many people who are very fond of their pets, especially dogs, they say, you know, my dog, whenever I pray to God, my dog comes right there. My dog is very devotional. A dog cannot be devotional. A dog does not know how to be devotional. It's not in the sanskars. It's that dog does not have a mind to understand who God is. That dog is just following its owner. That's it. The dog is sitting down to see if it will be given some food to eat or whatever, but not for God. The dog cannot be thinking about the Supreme. So we have been given a mind which is very developed, very advanced. But then the Devatas from Swargalok, the celestial beings, they are far more intelligent than we are. Even the most intelligent human is no match for a Devta. These Devatas in Swargalok, in the celestial regions, they have such knowledge that we cannot hope to have ever. For instance, they have weapons like Agniban, the arrow of fire, and Vayuban, the arrow of wind. These arrows, when the Devta releases that arrow will go to the intended victim, leaving everyone else completely unharmed. No matter where the victim is, the arrow will go right to the victim. Even if the victim is hiding somewhere, the arrow will go there. These Devtas, they have, in Swargalok, there is Saraswati, there is Brihaspati. These are authorities on knowledge. When children are studying for exams are coming up, so many people, so many of them go to do Saraswati Puja. They will worship Goddess Saraswati. She's in Swargalok because she is the authority on knowledge, along with Brihaspati, Guru Brihaspati. But even these Devtas do not have something that we have. They have far greater knowledge, but they do not have the right to perform actions that will bear fruit in the future. Can they perform fruit-yielding actions? No. They do perform actions, but their actions do not bear consequence. So even if these Devtas practice devotion to God, they will not be given the fruits of that devotion. They can do something very good or they can perform a heinous act, but they will not be rewarded or punished for their deeds. because they are bhog yoni. They are merely reaping fruits of previous actions of previous lives, but in the present life, whatever actions they perform, those actions do not bear fruit. Humans are the only children of God who are in karma yoni, meaning that we are no doubt reaping fruits of our previous actions, but more importantly, we are free to do as we like, and we do get fruits of our actions. अवश्यमेव भोक्तव्यम कृतं कर्म शुभाशुभम. मनुष्य को शुभ एवं अशुभ कर्म दोनों का फल मिलता है. और क्योंकि हम कर्म योनि हैं, शेष सब भोग योनि हैं. पशु पक्षी कीट पतंग पेड़ पौधे, यहाँ तक कि देवता, स्वर्ग के देवता भी भोग योनि हैं. उनको कर्मों का फल नहीं मिलता, पिछले जन्मों के कर्मों का फल मिल रहा है. जब वो मनुष्य थे तो जब उन्होंने जो कर्म किए उनका फल अभी उनको मिल रहा है, और वो कर्म नहीं कर सकते. कर्म करेंगे भी तो उनको फल नहीं मिलेगा. So we are the only children of God who are so privileged. We have been given such great privileges. We have a developed mind, and we have the right to perform fruit-bearing actions. But there's one disadvantage of the human birth, human form of life, and that is death may come at any moment. We get this human form of life with great difficulty. It's not very often that God gives to the soul a human birth. Oh no. Ramayan says, Kabahuk kari karuna nar dehi, देत ईश बिनु हेतु सनेही. बड़े भाग मानुष तनु पावा, सुर दुर्लभ सद ग्रंथ निगावा. These two verses from the Ramayan tell us that God gives the human form of life to the most fortunate soul, and only once in a while. In English we say once in a blue moon. In other words, very rarely does God, who is causelessly merciful, give the soul a human body. And if we, despite having this greatest gift from God in the form of human birth, if we just waste it in running after pleasures of the world, then we are rejecting the greatest gift that God gives to us. कांच किरिच बदले तेलेही, करते डारी परस मणि देही. ताहि कबहु भल कहि न कोई, गुंजाग्रहई परस मणि खोई. Tulsidas Ji says, if there's a foolish human, if there's someone, a human, who just spends all his life, his entire life, running after pleasures of the world, then he is such a big fool that he can be compared to someone who has the touchstone in his possession. Someone comes along and says, you have a stone in your possession. It's not a pretty stone. I have these wonderful, pretty, look, they're diamonds, but they're only shards of glass, colorful glass. Do you want to trade? And the fool says, yes, I would like to have the colorful diamonds you have. They're not diamonds. They're worthless pieces of glass. Kaanch kirich badale te lehi, karate dari parasmani dehi. He had the parasmani, the touchstone in his hand. You touch it, you touch iron with it, iron becomes gold. Philosopher's stone. And he gives it away. Go ahead, bhaiya, you take it, brother, and you give me what you have. He ends up with worthless pieces of glass. He's such a fool. So we are such fools if we, after having attained the human form of life, the rarest gift from God, if we just waste it in pursuits of worldly things, worldly people, worldly acquisitions then we are the biggest fools. King Dashrath knows this and he says, no, I don't have much time left because death can come at any moment. That is the greatest disadvantage of the human form of life. Death can come any moment. Our life is like a delicate thread that may break any moment. Or it's like a bubble that appears in water one moment, only to disappear the next. Pani kera budbuda asmanas ki jaat देखत ही छिप जाएंगे जो तारा प्रभात. And our life is like the stars that we see at the nighttime, but after a few hours we cannot see them, they have disappeared. Jo tara prabhat. So Dashrath ji made immediate plans to leave the kingdom in the hands of his eldest born Ram and then retire to the forest to practice devotion to God full time. Because he recognized that no matter how much you have in the way of the world, worldly property, no matter that you're living in a palace and you have coffers filled with gold and diamonds, precious stones, you can't take them with you. Those treasures mean nothing in the big scheme of things. In fact, someone who has so much and he hoards them, he is considered a sinner, an offender in the eyes of God. Why are you holding on to all this? He thinks that he is very, very wealthy and that is something very good, but after death, he is punished. He is sent to hell after death. Why did you accumulate so much? So King Dashrath is willing to give it all away. The palace means nothing to him. His gold and precious jewels, they mean nothing to him. Nothing matters. His royal robes and all the trappings of wealth, they mean nothing to him. What is important to him is God. He knows that what he will take with him is the devotion that he has accumulated in life. हमारे साथ क्या जाएगा मृत्यु के बाद? धन दौलत नहीं जाएगा हमारे साथ, धन नहीं जाएगा, दौलत नहीं जाएगी हमारे साथ. असली दौलत जाएगी हमारे साथ, वो है भगवान की भक्ति. जितनी भगवान की भक्ति कर सकें उतना ही अच्छा है. इसमें हमें लोभी बनना चाहिए. श्री महाराज जी कहा करते थे, हमारे गुरुदेव कहा करते थे, तुम्हारे पास 5 मिनट हैं, हाँ, रूप ध्यान कर लो, भगवान के बारे में सोच लो. बहुत व्यस्त हो, जी हाँ बहुत व्यस्त हैं, 2 मिनट हैं, जब तुम्हें दिन में 2 मिनट मिले रूप ध्यान कर लो. 5 मिनट मिले, 10 मिनट मिले, लोभी बन जाओ कि हम और करें, हमें और रूप ध्यान करें और भक्ति करें हम भगवान की. The real treasure we'll take with us, and the only thing we'll take with us, because you see, when the soul leaves the body, the mind goes with it. The devotion that we have accumulated in the mind, that is the only thing that God will look at. That is a merit. That is our biggest merit. That is what God will take a look at. How much devotion did you do? That is he going to be impressed when we say, oh, I built many houses for myself and my family. I lived in an amazing mansion. I went on so many wonderful vacations on the French Riviera. I went all over the world. That means nothing. So, from King Dashrath, we learn that we must not take human life lightly. This is the biggest gift that God gives to the soul. And we must value it properly. We must not reject the greatest grace of God. And we must understand the aim of human life, which is to know God, to love God, and thereby attain God. So King Dashrath came up with this plan that he will now practice devotion full time. He does not want the responsibility of being a king. His son Ram has learned everything there is to be learned about being a king. He is a young man now who is very capable. He would make a wonderful king. He's very fair. He'll be fair to all the subjects. He has learned everything there is to be learned about running a kingdom, and I shall do his Rajyabhishek. I shall coronate him. Alas, the plan was not going to work, because Kaikeyi had other things on her mind. So let's talk about Kaikeyi a little bit now. Kaikeyi was very loved by King Dasharath. She was one of his 3 queens. Her son was Bharat. And Kaikeyi loved Bhagwan Sri Ram the most. She loved him more than Bharat. She adored Ram. The 3 mothers, they loved all their children. They didn't love just the one they had given birth to. They loved all the 4. So Kaikeyi loved Ram. Kaikeyi had a maid by the name Manthara. Manthara had been with Kaikeyi since she was a little girl. And when Kaikeyi got married, Manthara came along with her to Ayodhya. She had been serving Kaikeyi for a long time, for many years, and she continued to serve Kaikeyi even after she got married. And whenever she would see Kaikeyi lavishing her attention on Ram, Kaikeyi would get very bothered by that. It would bother her. Why doesn't Kaikeyi only love Bharat? Why does she love Kaushalya's son? She could not say anything. Years passed, and King Dasharath told his queens about his plan. I am planning to make Ram the king, and I am going to retire to the forest, and you may come with me if you wish. And they all made plans with King Dasharath. All the 3 queens planned along with him to go to the forest. And everybody, all the 3 queens were very happy that Ram would become the king. And Kaikeyi was the happiest. When she heard the news, she went into her chambers and she embraced Manthara and she said, I'm so happy. And Manthara said, Rani, oh queen, what makes you so happy today? And Kaikeyi was giddy with happiness. She said, do you know something? King Dasharath has just announced, my husband has just announced that Ram will become the king. What? Yes, it is only right that Ram is the eldest of the 4. He should become the king, and I'm so happy. Manthara said, are you out of your mind? What? Why are you saying this? You shouldn't be happy. But why not? Oh, Kaikeyi, Rani, you are so naive. So naive. Think about it. Once Ram becomes a king, then Ram's mother, Kaushalya, will become the favorite of King Dasharath. You'll be on the sideline. He would not love you as much. Have you thought about this? Kaikeyi got so angry when she heard Manthara's words. She yelled at Manthara, get out of here, she said. I don't want to hear anything like this. Go away. She sent Manthara away. But Manthara was relentless. She would say the same thing every day to Kaikeyi. She said, Kaikeyi, think about what I'm saying. I'm saying this out of affection for you. I love you so much. I'm saying this for your own benefit. You have been given 2 boons by Raja Dasharath. This is the time to use them. Years earlier, King Dasharath was involved he was fighting a battle against the Asurs. And he was in danger. Kaikeyi was right alongside with him, and she had saved his life. She had led him out of the battlefield. And he was very thankful to her, and he had said, Kaikeyi, you can ask me for anything you want. I shall give you 2 boons. Kaikeyi had said, dear husband, I shall ask you for 2 favors when the time comes. Manthara knows this, And she says, Kaikeyi, you must ask for the 2 boons now. Now is the time. Now is the time. Take advantage of this great opportunity. Kaikeyi would get angry. She would send Manthara out of the room. But gradually, Kaikeyi started listening. And then one day she was convinced, yes, I shall ask for 2 boons. Manthara said, good. First boon, make Bharat the king instead of Ram. Second boon, banish Ram to exile for 14 years. Kaikeyi was, by this time she was convinced. She had heard so much of Manthara's words. Manthara had effectively poisoned Kaikeyi's ears. And Kaikeyi went and asked King Dashrath the 2 boons. King Dashrath was devastated. He said, I will make Bharat the king, but why banish Ram to exile? No, you had promised me 2 boons, and these are my 2 wishes. So King Dashrath was forced to banish Ram to exile. From this episode, involving Manthara and Kaikeyi, we learn a valuable lesson. And that is that we should reject bad advice. We should stay away from harmful association. Mind you, the real story is that Manthara is a great devotee of Bhagwan Sri Ram. But on the very first day, on Friday, I had said that I had talked about how these saints, these great pure devotees of God, come down to earth with him because they are part of his divine leelas, divine pastimes. And some of them are given the negative roles. Manthara is one of those devotees who have been given a negative role. So Manthara loves Bhagwan Sri Ram. She is a part of his plan, his pastimes. So according to that pastime, she is poisoning Kaikeyi's ears. But aren't there people in your life who try to poison your ears? Think about it. Have you received no bad advice from someone? Has there been a time when you rejected that bad advice, but eventually you accepted it? I believe that everyone has been through that experience. We listen to people. Some people give good advice, some people give bad advice. That bad advice, if we heed that advice, it could be very, very damaging to us. And it often is, always is. If it is a really bad advice, then it harms us tremendously. This is why parents tell their children, don't be friends with that boy or with that girl, because that boy has bad habits and you will be affected because you hang around with him or you hang around with her, and this is bad company for you, so don't hang around. And little children being naive, they don't understand. A lot of teenagers especially say, Mom, Dad, you're so biased. Being biased is not good, but there are examples of parents advising their children not because of bias, but because of reality, and that is bad advice will affect you. Whatever we hear affects us. Whatever we see affects us. What we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell affects us greatly. Because we are not so strong, our willpower is not very strong. We cannot say, I'm not affected by anyone's words. Of course we are. We are very affected. There have been very dangerous people in history, people like Hitler. When they spoke very well, and they convinced thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people of what they were saying. And what they were saying was totally wrong. It was evil. But they convinced so many people. So what we hear does affect us tremendously. We should not think that we are divine and that our mind will not become contaminated. It will not become polluted. Many years ago, there was a man who convinced a lot of very well-educated people. He convinced them to go off to Guyana, and he built a community which was eventually called Jonestown. Some of you may remember this. It was a horrible, horrible incident in history. And eventually he had many followers who followed him all the way. These were doctors. Many of them were doctors, engineers. You can't say, oh, well, they were uneducated fools. And it doesn't mean if you're uneducated, you're a fool. But you can't say, well, they didn't know anything better. They were well-educated people who had great intellects, but they were fooled by what they heard. And eventually he poisoned them all, killed them all, children included. It was a horrible, horrible incident in history, in American history. So there have been people, evil people, who have convinced others of their evil plans. And people have listened to them. People have gone along with them. We should not think we will not be affected. We are very affected, very greatly affected by the advice that is given to us, and especially if it's given again and again. So we must be very firm in not listening to bad advice. We know that it's bad advice, but sometimes we say, well, I was too polite to say anything. No, we must not be polite about it. We must say, no, I don't want to hear this. Go away from there. Or tell that person to go away. Because you see, when good words, wise words, words of wisdom, when we hear them, they make a little bit of an impression on the mind. And after we hear them for a long time, they make a little bit of an impression. But when we hear something wrong, it makes a huge impact, even if we hear it for just a moment or two. Same thing with seeing something. When we see something bad, that scene remains on our mind for a long, long time. But when we see something good, that doesn't leave so much of an impression. We are controlled by Maya. Our mind is controlled by Maya. And we are very greatly affected by what we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. This is why scriptures and saints advise us, be careful. Be careful. There are people you should stay away from, but respect them all the same because they have God within them. But there is a saying in Hindi, and that is called Dur se namaskar. Namaskar or namaste. Say namaste. In other words, I bow down to God within you, but say it from a distance. Don't go near that person. Because that person's association is going to harm you. So don't go near that person. हिंदी में हम बोलते हैं ना, दूर से नमस्कार कर लो. यानी नमस्कार भी करो, उसका आदर भी करो, क्योंकि भगवान उसके अंदर भी हैं, जैसे हमारे अंदर है उसके अंदर भी हैं, लेकिन हम दूर रहेंगे उससे. क्योंकि उसके तौर तरीके अच्छे नहीं हैं, क्योंकि उसकी आदतें बुरी हैं, और हम इतने अधिक, हमारे अंदर इतनी मानसिक शक्ति नहीं है कि हम किसी के पास रह करके उसकी बुरी आदतों से इम्प्रेस ना हो जाएं, अफेक्टेड ना हो जाएं. हमारे ऊपर असर पड़ेगा, आज नहीं तो कल. श्री महाराज जी कहते थे, अरे यदि तुम जा रहे हो मैखाने में, यानी जहां मदिरा बेचते हैं, तुम कहो कि हम पीते नहीं हैं, हम तो ऐसे बैठते हैं अपने दोस्तों के साथ, ये यकीन रखो कि एक दिन पियक्कड़ बन ही जाओगे. एक ना एक दिन पीना शुरू कर दोगे, क्योंकि तुम्हारी जो कंपनी है, जिनका संग कर रहे हो, वो शराब पी रहे हैं, तुम भी शराब पियोगे. वो जुआ खेलते हैं, तुम कहते हम उनको देखते हैं बस. कब तक देखोगे? मन अटक जाएगा उसमें. एक दिन तुम भी जुआरी बन जाओगे. यानी कि हम किसी के शब्दों से, जब हम शब्द सुनते हैं किसी के, तो हमारे ऊपर असर पड़ता है. इसलिए हमें संतों की वाणी सुननी चाहिए, हमें अच्छी अच्छी बातें सुननी चाहिए, शास्त्रों वेदों की बातें सुननी चाहिए ताकि हमारे ऊपर असर पड़े, अच्छा असर पड़े, और संसारी बातें कम से कम सुननी चाहिए ताकि हम और संसारी ना बन जाएं. If someone wishes to make progress on the spiritual path, on the path of devotion, then he must make a choice. Do I really want to walk in this path? Yes, of course, I'm committed to it. Then don't keep the company of just anyone. Respect everyone, but only go near those who are going to help you on your path. You will say, well, I have been friends with this guy for so many years. I mean, we've been friends since kindergarten. But now you're on the devotional path and you're not being proud of that. It's just a fact. You have trying to wake up spiritually. And now this friend of yours, he makes fun of you. Oh, since when did you become a Babaji? So you're becoming a saint now? And he has no interest in God, and he is a proud atheist. What do you have in common with him? Your friends. You were hanging around them, but now there's nothing in common. So is it going to further your cause by hanging around them? Mind you, as I will say it again, no judgment against anyone, but we are selfish, and we should be wisely selfish. We should be selfish enough to further the cause of the soul. We should be selfish enough to protect the devotion that we are accumulating. It's just a little bit of devotion that we practice. Then why should we just be so willing to just lose it? So Manthara had poisoned Kaikeyi's ears. And now this is not from the Ramayan, it's from the Bhagavad, but I'd like to just point this out over here about Kans, the maternal uncle of Sri Krishna. He had imprisoned his sister Devaki and her husband. They were newlyweds, Vasudev, because there was a voice from the heavens that said, the eighth son of your sister Devaki and Vasudev, he is going to kill you. He's going to kill you, and he will be the cause of your death. So he immediately put Devaki and Vasudev in the prison. But there came, and every time Devaki gave birth to a child, Kans would come and he would kill the child, the newborn child, the baby. But there came a time when Kans became very contrite. He felt so badly about what he had been doing. He felt so repentant that he went to the prison cell and he cried. He touched the feet of Devaki and Vasudev and he said, please forgive me. Forgive me. I have committed so many sins. I have killed your newborn children. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? And then he released them from the prison cell. Then he went to his ministers. He was meeting with his ministers, and the ministers found out what he had done, and the ministers gave him bad advice. Maharaj, you shouldn't have done that. Oh no, all of them said, one by one, they all said, this was a bad move. We wish you would have consulted us before doing this. The danger still lurks, and you need to protect your life, so you need to put Vasudeva and Devaki back into prison. And Kans was so affected by what he heard, he went right back to Vasudeva and Devaki, came back to his former self, put them behind prison. Once again, we have these examples from our scriptures. And these scriptures, Ramayan, Mahabharata, these are historical scriptures. This really happened. Some people say, these are works of fiction, and this is all an allegory, and this and that. It's not. It's just, it happened. Itihas, it's history. It happened in Treta Yuga that Bhagwan Ram came down to earth. There was a king, Dashrath. He had these queens, and he had 4 sons. It all happened. There was a Ravan. There was all this happened. So, from Dashrath Ji Maharaj, we learn that human life is precious, it is to be valued very highly, and it is the greatest gift from God. And while we are in this human form of life, we should try immediately to accomplish what we are sent here for, to know God, love God, and to attain God realization. And from Kaikei and Manthara, we learn that we should be very, very careful. As soon as we hear bad advice, as soon as we think we're going to hear it, we should remove ourselves from that scene, or we should ask the advisor to go away. Because it is going to help. It is going to harm us. It's not going to help us. It is going to harm us. We see what harm was created, what harm was done by Manthara's words, who was the dasi, the maid servant of Kaikei. Now, all this is a leela. These are divine pastimes of God. And Kaikei is God realized, Manthara is God realized. But here we are, ordinary humans. We are not performing leelas. We are here as we've been given the fruits of our actions, and every action of ours is being recorded. In other words, every thought. Every thought is being recorded by God. Every thought is an action in the eyes of God, and every action we will be held responsible for every single action, every single thought. Karam pradhan vishwa kari rakha, jo jas kariye so tas phal chakha. So these two lessons are very important for us to keep in mind. King Dasharath, his example of realizing that life is short, old age is soon approaching, if it's not here already, and that the noble mission of life must be accomplished as soon as possible. And we learned from Manthara and Kaikei that bad advice is very detrimental to us as we walk on the spiritual path. It is detrimental to everyone on the material path as well as on the, especially on the spiritual path. Now I look forward to sharing some more lessons with you next Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Boliye Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki jai. सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय. जय जय श्री राधे. जय जय श्री राधे. जय जय श्री राधे.